Good afternoon and welcome to Greater. This is the third serialized conversation about what we call My Rights, My Power campaign. And this is an initiative that came in from the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative in partnership with the Electoral Commission and, of course, the Uganda Human Rights Commission and NTV Uganda. My name is Andrew Chamagero. In a very first conversation, we had to look at are the electorates ready when it gets to 2021? And shortly after that, we had another conversation that came with the tools and the modalities under which the elections were to be held. Now, in our third serialized conversation, we are saying that Unwrapping Election Day on 14th January 2021. Now, to me, today to have this conversation, we'll have the Director of Monitoring and Inspections from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, that is Mrs. Ruth Sechindi. She'll be joining us. We have Mr. Joseph Beyanga, Secretary General from the Uganda National Broadcasters Association, National Association of Broadcasters there. And then we have Mr. Absalam Waswa, the Head Legal Compliance and Compliance to Uganda Communications Commission, that's UCC. We have Major Retired Rabon Okwel from the UPDF. And we have Honorable Ronald Mukasa Senkuboge. This is Alliance for Transformation, a flag bearer for Kampala Central. We'll be having his opinion later. And from Electoral Commission, we have Mr. Paul Bukenya, who happens to be the spokesperson. Now, this conversation seeks to address public concerns as Ugandans go to polls in 2021. We would like to hear your views, so you go on Facebook, follow NTV Uganda. This conversation is live on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channels. But not only that, you go to FHR that is Foundation for Human Rights Initiative. You'll find this conversation. Now, to start off this conversation, I want to greet my panelists. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Waiswa.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good to see you. Paul Kenya, how are you holding up?
I'm alive and well, strong and going, and good afternoon to you. Why are you laughing?
It's crazy. Your job is quite complicated. Major, good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's amazing to see you when you're not in combat. I feel more like a civilian I'm talking to. Good to see you here. And on Zoom, we have, of course, Joseph Beyanga. Good afternoon, Beyanga, Mr. Beyanga.
Good afternoon, Andrew, and good afternoon, panelists in the studio.
Good to hear from you. And Honorable Ronald Mukasa Senkuboge, good afternoon.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to be part of the panel. I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now the conversation has started. The hashtag is my vote. The hashtag is My Rights, My Power campaign. That's the hashtag on Twitter, on Facebook. That's the conversation we're running by. If you drop it, I'll pick it and read it a little later. Now, let me start off from a layman's understanding. I'll start off with you, Mr. Paul Bukenya. What should the public expect on the election day come 14th, 2021?
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, polling day, of course, we have polling days for various elections that we're going to have between. But of course, we can talk about 14th of January, which is polling day for presidential elections and parliamentary elections. It's a 3-in-1. So one of the things you should look at, it's a 3-in-1. That means at polling station A, we're here at Serena polling station. We're going to have our polling station with 3 ballot boxes because we're going to cast votes for 3 elective positions. That means we're going to vote for president, we're going to vote for directly elected member of parliament, and then we'll vote for the district woman representative to parliament.
On the same day?
On the same day. So as we look at 14th, and of course in the program we'll talk about other dates, we're going to have elections at your polling station, and unless the positions were uncontested, where a candidate was elected unopposed, all our polling stations across the country will have 3 ballot boxes where you will move from table 1, pick a ballot paper for presidential, cast it in the first box, move to another table, get a ballot paper for parliamentary, mark it and cast it in the box, and then move to the last one for district woman MP, cast the vote, and move out, have your chutico mark that you voted, sanitize, and then leave the station.
So you're saying leave the station. But some political candidates, and I'll be very exact, this is Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu. He keeps on saying that after you vote, stay by the polling station. So where does this leave the security? How secure will the people be? Because on the other side, candidates are rallying their people to stay at the polling station to guard their vote. But according to the regulations from the roadmap, it says that each candidate will have only 2 agents to stay at the polling station. So how do we balance the juxtaposition?
Yeah, ordinarily, if we are in normal conditions, what we normally advise is that after voting, you can keep a distance of at least 20 meters from the polling station and observe what's going on. But now there is a risk of another gathering coming up, and in the circumstances, you know what we are battling, COVID-19, we do not want to see, again, another setting for super spreader of COVID-19. So we are saying, yes, candidates are by law entitled to have agents at a polling station. So, and at least two agents. So at all times, a candidate has 2 agents at a polling station, and that is, I think, adequate to take care of your interests.
Okay.
So we want to discourage another, gathering of crowds at a polling station, because that could also, lead to pose the risk of spread of COVID-19. Like we know, gatherings are really not, we do not allow gatherings in the circumstances where we are. But of course, the counting is public, so you can come back and then later on when you're doing the counting.
Oh, later on.
Because the counting is witnessed. Ordinarily, the agents would be able to represent your interests throughout. But if you feel like you should, you can come back at the counting. But we discourage strongly gatherings, because then we'll go back into a risk of spread of COVID-19. Yeah.
Coming to the regulator, my regulator, this is my boss. Why is my boss? Because he comes from UCC. In the wake of COVID-19, with the election season being here, how is UCC holding up, the regulator?
Thank you very much, Andrew, and good afternoon, all our viewers. As UCC, basically we are doing background support to the Electoral Commission and all the other actors in the process. As you know, because of COVID, these elections, unlike before, are going to be largely digital, so people are using the media platforms to campaign, they're using the TVs, the radios, the online platforms to popularize the ideas and also to engage the electorate. So what UCC is doing is to ensure that the necessary mechanism, the necessary infrastructure is available for the candidates to freely approach the media houses, the online platforms, and be able to relay their messages to the voters, but also ensuring that the voters are doing their bit. They are receiving the information, because, uninformed, educated electorate is very critical in the delivery of a fair election. So as UCC, we are trying to encourage all our broadcasters to use their licenses, to use their platforms to educate people, not just to wait for candidates to come and campaign, but also we are calling upon the broadcasters to organize programs where civic organizations come and educate the masses about their rights, but also constantly reminding the electorate and all candidates to ensure that as they're using the media to campaign, they should respect the rights of others. They must know that in the media industry there are regulations. So unlike the ordinary campaigning strategy where somebody would go at a pitch and will shout, will say many words against other candidates, when you're on air, on radio, TV, or even on online platforms, there are a number of laws that regulate how you communicate. So because of that, we are calling upon all candidates, but also the show hosts, the media owners, to ensure that they adequately prepare all candidates who are going to participate on their shows, to avoid participating in defamatory campaigning strategies, throwing insults at other candidates, but also saying words that could potentially incite the public against other parties on the basis of their political affiliations. But also we are calling upon the media to avoid sensationalizing their reporting about elections. The media has a role, a very critical role of informing, educating the public about the electoral process, but we're also calling upon the media to exercise a lot of responsibility by ensuring that their reporting is balanced, is fair, is accurate. And also the standards guide that when you are running any program on any, regarding any content of a political office, try as much as possible to give all candidates, all parties involved in the process, a fair opportunity to come and represent their opinions. So these are the general reminders we've given out to all operators, and these are all intended to ensure that we have a smooth, fair, and very good election.
I really want to commend you on that. We've had a case recently where UCC wrote a letter to Google about YouTube channels that were streamlining the people power. Among them, there was Map Media and all that. In the same vein, when you're saying that media has to be very versatile in having free and fair and balanced communication and showing exactly what is on ground. On our side, as as media practitioners, and I'm coming to you, Mr. Beyanga, we who on TV and radio, we are licensed operators. So in one way or the other, we won't broadcast a couple of things. What triggered UCC to go that notch higher to write to Google or the powers that be on the other side to put down some channels?
Okay, the reason why we wrote to Google was not that we were just acting on that particular day, but we've informed the public before that sometime in 2017, and to be specific, I think on the 3rd of November 2013, the UCC issued a public gazette where we notified the public that UCC had classified provision of online broadcasting and data communication services as licensable communication services. As the public knows, under the Uganda Communications Commission, UCC is given broad mandate to regulate, control, set standards, and guide the development and the provision of communication services in Uganda. So over the years, we discovered that traditionally, our regulatory focus was more on the mainstream media. But now with the advancement in technology, we've seen increasingly that there is convergence in the sector. So you find, whereas traditionally NTV would be here and broadcast on a normal TV set, people are now watching NTV on social media, on their phones, on the internet. But also, we know that whereas the mainstream media houses, radios and TVs, are using social media and online platforms to further rebroadcast their content, there are also a number of people who have now become broadcasters in that small way. They have set up systems, they have set up businesses, they have programs, they are employing people, they have cameras all over the country, they are reading news. Some of them are even advertising content for different people, but those platforms through which they provide such communication services are not licensed. And the damage that a person could suffer as a result of NTV not being professional could be even graver, could even be bigger if this person is, for example, targeted by an online platform. In fact, some of these online platforms have more viewers than some TVs, than some radios. So what we did... Because they stream live in the real time when it's happening. In real time, and they're being watched by people beyond one region, beyond one country. So because of that, UCC, in line with the global practice, shifted its attention to beyond just the mainstream media and also look at what we call the new media. And that's why we came in with the requirement that every person who is providing commercial TV or radio broadcasting services using the online platforms, they should come to UCC, fill in a very simple form, pay 100,000 per year, and they get a license. As we speak now, we have 56 licensed online data service communicators, and these are mainly online newspapers. We have some online TV.
But you have to go to Google to put this down.
The reason why we wrote to Google, Google owns YouTube.
Of course.
YouTube is a platform through which many of these people relay their content. So we have done a lot of public engagements. We've done public notices to all these providers. We have also tried to reach out to them. Some of them open up these YouTube accounts using anonymous content. So even when we want to reach to them and invite them for a meeting as UCC, they cannot come. We don't know them. For us, they know our offices, but we don't know where they are broadcasting from. And at the same time, there are members of the public that are increasingly complaining about the way these online platforms are generally broadcasting and carrying content over their platforms. So what we did as UCC, rather than blocking these sites outrightly, we wrote to Google. And in our letter, we didn't just a Google block. We told Google many things. One of them was put in place measures to ensure that before you make it possible for somebody to begin broadcasting, before somebody can open up a YouTube channel through which they can broadcast, you must ask them for certain conditions, for certain requirements. One of them, do they have authorization from the regulator? Because under the Ugandan law, you cannot broadcast without a license. It is clearly in the law. It's an offense for anybody to broadcast. And what those people do online is actually broadcasting. And under the Ugandan law, Section 27 of the Uganda Communications Act, it is a very clear offense for anybody to do what they do. But what we did, it was to tell Google, block access to these sites. Our expectation was that once Google takes action, many of these people will come to you, to UCC. In fact, as we speak now, a number of them have already responded. They have come to UCC, they have filled in the forms, and that is all we need from them. And we call upon all others out there. Our intention is not to cause anybody to lose their
freedom
job.
of expression.
No, you know, freedom of expression is a right. Is a right like all other rights in the Constitution, and indeed Article 29 of the Ugandan Constitution provides for it. But in the same Constitution, Article 43 provides that the government might come up with restrictions or measures through which people can enjoy these rights in a way that does not compromise the enjoyment of other people's rights. Now, one of the measures government came up with regard to freedom of expression and the rights of the media was that before you can become a provider of media services, be it radio, TV, or online, be registered, get a license. I mean, NTV, we are here now, we are talking to the entire world, but NTV has a license.
Yes,
so
we
if
do.
another person is doing work that is comparable to what NTV is doing, how is it bad for the regulator to require that person to come and fill in a form, a very simple form, 2 pages. Tell us who you are, and then you pay 100,000 Ugandan shillings for a whole year. We think this is a minimum requirement, and we've looked at a number of human rights instruments across the world. They all provide for this freedom.
That's where I'm coming. That's where I'm coming. You don't have to speed bump me. We have been joined by, of course, the Uganda Human Rights Commission Monitoring Director, Monitoring and Inspections, Ms. Ruth Sechindi. Good afternoon, Madam. It's good to see you. And given that you're here, we want to look at, from your perspective as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, this year we didn't have a report, but there was some particular requisites you made if we are to have a free and fair elections. That was when we were celebrating the International Human Rights Day. Looking at the elections on 14th Jan 2021, what are the expectations? What are some of the indicators you're looking at, and your projections are saying possibly we could have this kind of situation or this kind of situation?
Thank you so much, and I greet my colleagues here, and I also greet the viewers. Come January 2014, we have so many anticipations. However, election is a process, not an event.
Oh, yes.
And because of that, we are expecting certain things to be done in compliance with international human rights standards. We are expecting observance of human rights. And in the runner-up to the election day, there has to be issues of freedom of expression, freedom of association, free, fair, and credible elections. Involves a number of players, and all players have to play their role. And I think that is why my brother from UCC is here, Electoral Commission, and all of us come together, because it involves so many stakeholders for us to have a credible, free, and fair election. Now, what every person in Uganda, every voter or non-voter has an obligation. They all have rights, but they also have duties and responsibilities. It also comes to the state itself, government agencies, ministries and departments. They also have duties and responsibilities. Now, quite often, as rights holders, the ordinary person, me and you, the voter, we always look at our right.
Yes.
So we know we have a right to vote. We know we have a freedom of expression. We know we have a right to information, to impart and receive information. Yes. We know we have a right of conscience, of freedom of your views, and all that. Very fine.
Yes.
However, we note that many times rights go hand in hand, duties and responsibilities, and that is where we fall short as voters. Now, we expect the government to observe certain obligations, to observe certain duties. It has to make sure, for example, Electoral Commission The voter register is updated.
Oh, yes.
The ballot paper is on time. Persons have to know how to vote,
Yes.
okay, where they're going to vote from. They have to know that they should be able to express themselves. However, these rights are not, some of these rights are not absolute. And that is where sometimes we don't understand that those rights may be limited. Now, in the context of COVID-19, certain rights have been limited. They have not been taken away. And it is wrong for the state to take away the right. And if it has to limit it, it has to be justifiable. It has to be proportionate to that threat. It has to be lawful. It has to be legal, okay? And it has to be necessary. Now, if you have freedom of expression in the runner-up to January 2014, sorry, January 14th,
yes.
You have freedom of expression, but how do you use it? It has to be responsible use. If you're going to use social media, don't insult, don't use fake news, don't use misinformation, disinformation. So you also have duties that you have to abide by. If you do that and you violate that another person's rights, or you don't observe rights responsibly, then they may limit your rights.
But you see, Director, this comes on the work where civil societies that could have done the civic work of creating awareness in the masses, the accounts were frozen in the recent past. We have seen the NGOs running over to government saying that, look, our accounts that have the money that are meant to run our logistics while we are, creating civil awareness on grounds have been frozen. In that wake, we are having an electorate or a populace that's not so sure how the dynamics are going to play. Now, you as Uganda Human Rights, how are we going to strike the position of EC saying that 2 agents per polling station vis-a-vis a candidate who is saying that after you vote, it's your right to protect the vote, because stay at the polling station, you don't know what's coming on the other side. But again, you've said that the new laws have to be directly proportional. They have not been taken away. The rights are not taken away, but they just, they're just tweaked a bit for the condition where we are. So where do we strike the balance of human rights at the same time not infringing on Mr. Bukenya's institution? And
that's where responsibilities come in. Because you have a right to observe, to make sure that the vote is cast and that it is free and fair. And also as a candidate, if you look at the EC rules and guidelines and also the Electoral Commission laws, each candidate is supposed to have a representative previously. A representative at the polling station.
Now they're saying
not so?
Now, 2, at least 2. Even now
yes, so right now they still do, to protect their vote from being stolen, okay? Fair enough. However, if they say keep 2, you have an obligation to ensure that you keep 2. We know that election is really a charged environment. People are excited, they are angry, and they want to win, and it's acceptable.
Yes.
Fine.
It's an emotional
However, yes. However, you have to be responsible in the way you realize your right. Now, many times we get emotional and charged up when we talk about rights, and we say, when we speak and tweak it to the other side, when we talk about responsibilities.
It works on my side.
Then they question and say, are you for real? You're supposed to be only talking about rights, and not the duties and responsibilities. Yes. But this is where we caution, because where your right begins or ends is where mine begins, meaning our rights are intertwined, interlinked. So when you're making noise for you because you have freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, but you're making noise for me, I am sick, I am not well, I have a right to silence. Peace and quiet. So you realize that rights are interrelated and interlinked for all of us. So in this case, when Electoral Commission comes out and says, because of COVID-19, let us have 2 agents at each polling station, it would be wrong for you to say, no, we shall have many. Everyone who votes should stick there, because there is the fear of COVID-19, there is the fear of the spread, and also 2 is sufficient. It is reasonable. So in the circumstances of a reasonable man, and using the law, within the law, because it's within the law, and it is necessary, and it is proportionate, I think 2 would be sufficient, and whatever we do, let's abide by the laws. However, that does not mean that every law is human rights compliant.
That's where I'm coming.
Yes, and I want to finish this before someone else. Just because there was apartheid in South
Yes.
Africa did not, and it was lawful, did not make it right.
Of course.
In our Ugandan situation, that is not what is happening. And I think the laws that EC has brought are not bad laws. The regulation and the guidelines are not bad. If they were, I would have spoken up. So I think I believe they are good, and I know they are good. That is why let us try to be as responsible as we are, as we should be, and toe the line and try to abide by some of these regulations. They're for our own good and for the good of the country.
Thank you. That is Ruth Sechindi from Uganda Human Rights Commission. Now, we have a Major General. This is Major Retired. I shouldn't give you this wrong. This is Major Retired Raboni. Major, we have seen the UPDF playing a key role in the Joint Security Council with regards to the elections. And we want to know, how ready is the UPDF? Previously, we had issues with the UPDF. Personally, in the previous election, I had a very bad scene. Thank God, we are in a new era where it's a professional force here. But it comes at a time where LDUs have been reintroduced back again. We thank the UPDF. They took them for training, refresher courses, and they brought them back. Are we safe to have the LDUs under the UPDF during the election day?
First of all, let me thank you for giving us the platform to discuss these important issues, and I also thank the panelists. The contributions are really important in content. The work the UPDF and other security agencies do during the electoral process is founded on law, both the Constitution and the UPDF Act. Secondly, the history of the UPDF is a history of an army which was formed by people to overthrow what they thought was an oppressive government. So there are historical linkages between the UPDF
And the people.
and the people. Thirdly, the law, the legal framework, and the operational foundations of our security forces allow the UPDF to reinforce the police and other security agencies should the need arise. Now that is the theoretical and the practical reality we are in. But that reality is also founded on the fact which our colleague from the Human Rights Commission talked about, that elections are a process. And I think Ugandans should take keen interest in this process. Because it seems sometimes when we finish one electoral cycle, we first sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Until 1 year to the next election, then we start fumbling and trying to find solutions. The state and its organs should help the Electoral Commission, because I think they are the ones who are mandated by law to conduct civic education across the country. And they should receive the resources necessary so that both the government, the state, the civil society, political parties, the citizenry who are the elected, know exactly what their rights are, as she said, and what their responsibilities are. And the civic education package should not be like voter education, because there's a difference between voter education and civic education. Voter education is, where is your polling station? How, if you can't sign, how do you put your thumbprint? Where do you put it? And stuff like that. But civic education is deeper in content. So I think Uganda should look keenly into the matter of enriching the content of civic education, investing in it, so that we can have peaceful, civilized, and sanitized electoral processes.
I love when you say civilized. When I was young in my primary, we had one of the subjects was civics, and I think I was the lucky last ones to have civics. Mukenya here can smile because I'm sure he had it.
I can tell the year you were in that class.
You should not add that up. But it brought us closer to our right and our duties as citizens, and it showed us what the law and what could be the repercussions on the flip side of it all. When you say sanitized, I love when you say that UPDF is hinged on people values. That's what they're doing. But are they, the grim scenarios we've seen in the recent past from the UPDF are alarming, Major. We have seen people shooting, we have seen people in plain clothes when we had the riots, and I condemn it in the strongest terms possible. It's a sin I don't want to see again in my country because it was very polarized. People lost lives in that kind of remark. Going to election, a final emotional day. How ready is the UPDF?
Well, first of all, let me say, I'm not a serving member of the UPDF.
You are retired.
I'm retired, but
But
I
you
joined
still
the
subscribe to the
UPDF as a
ideology.
child soldier, and I've been following the development of NRA/UPDF. And I can say with authority that UPDF has a history of achievements which are compared with very few armies on the continent. UPDF came from a platoon of 30 officers and men into a formidable force that not only pacified Uganda, guaranteed peace and security, but also contributed to regional peace and stability. South Sudan, Rwanda, Somalia, Congo. So UPDF has a shining record of achievements, and Ugandans are proud of it. In fact, so many people tell me that to meet a civilian at night, you'd rather meet a UPDF officer because people fear each other more than
let me
men
be
in
very
uniform.
honest with you. I would rather meet a UPDF guy at night than an LODU at night.
Now,
And being a true Ugandan.
the second point is that that the UPDF, all security agencies have a codes of conduct.
Oh, really?
So when mistakes are made, assuming mistakes were made because we're still waiting for the report of the Commission of Inquiry into what happened in the recent past, where we lost 57, 58 people,
Very upset.
which is really a tragedy. But the army, which I understand, still has a code of conduct, and whenever an individual commits an offense, he or she commits it as an individual.
So he will be charged as
And
an
they are
individual.
tried, and through practice, in fact, there was a time when people could even be shot for infringing on the rights of our people. We have that history. Then the second is that this culture of rioting is a culture which we should study as citizens of this country and say, where do they come from? Where do such occurrences come from? Are they spontaneous? Are they organized? Is it a breakdown of political dialogue?
One of our candidates was saying the other day that they are funded by external powers.
It's possible. And in fact, when I talk to my colleagues in the UPDF, the command, the senior command, I think they have reasons to think that there are foreign forces that are involved in trying to manipulate the results of this election process. And this is intelligence information, which these things have been around for the last 20 years. With every electoral cycle, some forces want to maneuver and make sure that their allies in Uganda are the ones who win. So investigations continue. Intelligence organs are looking at it and trying to find solutions to them. But your question was, is the UPDF up to the task?
UPDF ready? Is it up to the standards to protect the human rights, but as well as doing its mandate on the election day?
Yes, the UPDF, in fact, my third point was supposed to be, the UPDF has a robust CIMIC regime. CIMIC is civil military cooperation. So we always have a political thermometer of what the people of Uganda think about the UPDF. And every unit of the UPDF has political commissars. These political commissars interact with the people, and they teach the troops how to relate to the people. Finally, on the issue of LDUs, LDUs was a stopgap measure, the recruitment of. You remember in Kampala when people were dying, women were dying in Wakiso. And people were being shot, political leaders were being shot, and the commander-in-chief guided that a force should be formed to augment the Uganda Police Force and should be trained by the UPDF. And of course, as a quick measure, it had its downside. But as you say, the UPDF is trying to polish these young people to make sure that they don't continue committing.
Thank you so much, Major. That is Major Raboni. Now, going on Zoom, I have Mr. Beyanga Joseph from the National Association of the Broadcasters. From where you stand, Mr. Beyanga, earlier on, Council Waiswa from UCC said that the regulator is trying its level best not to infringe on the right on freedom of expression, but rather regulate content that does not polarize the populace into chaos. From where you stand as a broadcaster, how safe are the waters for us to go through to 2021?
Well, if you're asking about the waters, let me hope you are not ready to dive deep. That's a joke. I think at the moment, so far from the time the election exercise started up to now, we've noted a slight improvement in the way that security forces are dealing with the media. You remember on day one of nomination, it was day two? Yeah, day two of nomination. That day one was very peaceful. Day two is when we had everything turned upside down. That's when we had the fracas that happened with the nomination of FCC's Amriyat and also the fracas that followed the nomination of Nook's Bobby Wine. That day, not only were the candidates and the agents arrested, but also the media houses, our reporters, our cameramen, our people on the ground is not surviving. Tear gas was thrown indiscriminately, and even some direct beatings have been made in the media. But we've had some interactions over time. We've interacted, engaged with the security forces, where we've put in our petitions. They've listened to us. They've set up joint committees where we keep on engaging continuously. So, and we engage also with the regulator. So there's been an improvement. We say the journalist, the harassment on the journalist is not as good as it was at the beginning. There's still room for improvement. A lot more can be done. But so far we can celebrate some of that improvement as we keep on looking at how can we make it better. But back in the media houses themselves, a few of the candidates who have more especially opposition candidates, they've had attempts to go into the media houses and their interviews being interrupted. Now, the different media houses have not formally lodged in their complaints, and then if you ask why, so he'll tell you he has not received anything. And that is also a cause for worry. If media houses, somebody booked an interview, they paid for it, they are in the studio doing the interview, and somebody comes and he orders them out of their schedule and all that. And the media house doesn't complain, and when you ask them, they say everything is okay. So somebody looking at the freedom of expression and freedom of the media to do their job and freedom for candidates to freely access media houses, that's a cause for worry. It tells you what else is happening that is not, that goes unnoticed. Well, so things like those, you'd say, can be straight enough. Why is it that the media houses can't raise their voice and say something wrong is happening here? And you only see it in the media being reported. When I'll give you an example. I've made an attempt to reach out to two media houses, and I'll give one of them, which was in Hoima. The guys who were on the ground, they were ready to file their complaint, but when they talked to the station owner said no. And actually, he picked the phone and called me and said, "You people of NAB, for us, we are fine. Whatever happened was between the security forces and the candidates." So that is a cause for worry. The fact that the media house can just be gagged, not speak out openly. You'd say also what we've experienced levels of, we've had some good levels of self-regulation, and I should like to congratulate media houses on that. But I think other members of broadcasters, they've taken self-regulation to self-censorship. At times the line can be too thin. So there is a lot that you'll not hear that is happening. Why? Because people have taken regulation to mean censorship. So that may not be good, but we keep on engaging with both the broadcasters and the regulator to make sure people are empowered, the media houses are empowered, they know their rights, they know the limits, and make sure they give people the information. Because it's one thing to know the voting day, but it's another thing to know the person you are going to vote for, and more importantly, to know what they stand for. So that's so far the temperatures in the water.
Okay. Thank you so much, Benga. Hang in there, I'll tap a little bit to you. Coming back to my colleague, Mr. Senkubege from Alliance for National Transformation. As a candidate who is vying for position in these elections, what do you make of the entire populace and the electorates? Are they ready? Are they excited? Are they scared? Are they intimidated? At the grounds level, is it a level playground? What do you make of it, Senkubege? Mr. Senkubege? Okay. Well, I think...
sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for the question. I guess from the standpoint of a candidate, this is a point when we are kind of getting into the final lap of our bid. I'm standing in Kampala Central, and I guess I speak for all people who are in the races in different positions. This is the time when we are all hoping that the work which we are putting can materialize on the election date. And I guess for me, that's one of the things which is important for us to focus on. And I'm excited that we have representation from the EC, from UCC, and from other players who are part of this. Why is it important? I guess elections are all about hope. They're about causing the population to hope that the leadership in the next 5 years will be better than the one which they have had in the previous 5 years. And I think in the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, they decided that every 5 years we'll give back the responsibility to the people to decide who should take on this mandate, whether to renew a mandate or to find someone new at the different levels of leadership. Now, I guess the first few weeks of our election process, especially the presidential election process, were marred by violence, and we also have lives which were lost. Over 50 Ugandans passed away during this period. Now, what has this caused? I think the first pain is certainly that immediate pain of the people who have lost their loved ones, and them asking questions about whether they're going to get justice for the people, for them who are part of the families of these 50, and know these families. I speak specifically, most of this happened within Kampala Central and within the greater Kampala. So when I meet the people who I'm campaigning against, you find people who knew someone who lost their life during that process. They're not excited about the electoral process. They're actually quite sad about the electoral process because of what happened. But it also has a knock-on effect on the rest of us. With more people, you find people who are asking, when does the election end? Which is a sad thing, because an election is a time of hope. It's a time of excitement that we are going to usher in a new leadership which can be able to possibly answer those challenges that we are currently having. So I think that in the next few weeks towards the election date, one of the things which is critical is to cause this hope to come alive. And I think there has certainly been an improvement. There have been less cases in the last 1 or 2 weeks, which is a good thing. And I think that momentum needs to be pushed, and the Electoral Commission and the other actors have to ensure that there is a sense that the eyes and the hearts of the voters are put back on the candidates, and them asking who is the best person to do this job. So I think in the next 3 weeks, that's going to be absolutely important. Why? So that people can get excited again, can start saying, we are going into an election, there are candidates in this race, this is my candidate, this is what they're saying. And if that message is coming out from the Electoral Commission, that message is coming out from media houses, it would be exciting to watch a news broadcast with less talk about the tear gas and more talk about the manifestos and the aspirations of the people who are standing. I think that's something which would be a good thing to do within the next 2 weeks. And specifically on election day, I guess the big question is will people come out and vote in this environment? I certainly am. I'm on an election trail, and I've been running my election lightly door to door. And you meet people and you meet small groups, and within that group you find people who are a bit worried. For us in urban areas, there are questions whether people, when they return to the village, whether they'll come back, because there are those who are afraid. They don't know what will happen on 14th of January. So I think there is a lot of work which needs to be done to reinstate confidence in the population that they will cast their vote, because it's a responsibility given to them by the Constitution. So I think that work needs to be done, so that the voter knows that the country wants him to come out and decide, that the country doesn't want him to stay at home and abdicate his responsibility or her responsibility to vote. So I think that's something which is absolutely important, making sure that we excite people again about the election. We excite them about casting this vote, and we actively call them out to vote. I think for me, it would be important to hear more messages coming from all stakeholders, calling out people to come and vote. This will start with the Electoral Commission. It should be happening within the media. It should be happening within religious organizations. Just telling people that, you know what, make sure that you practice, you take your responsibility and you go out and vote and cast your vote.
Thank
you
so much.
On election day, I think it's important that people are not afraid about the politics.
Mr. Senghuge, because of time, I'm going to cut you short. I'm going to cut you short because of time. But your point has been made. All stakeholders need to encourage people to go out and vote. It's actually 4 p.m. and that means we still have 1 more hour to go. But remember, the hashtag is My Rights, My Power campaign. On Twitter, I see a couple of you throwing very many questions to EC, to Electoral Commission, and of course to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. There is a question on Twitter. Allow me, Mrs. Sechini, to read this for you. This one is saying that, it says, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm a Ugandan in Gulu. You want to keep your name, but I can still see your handle. No work done. Anyway, he goes ahead, is Kennedy, he says, what has the Human Rights Commission done about the lives that were lost in the recent past? They are quiet. We are waiting to hear a report from them or castigating these inhuman deeds that were done on that particular day, and they're still quiet. And she's telling us to take on our right and practice our duty. Is she doing the job on the other side as well? That is Kennedy Ngulu.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Yes.
When we hear such sentiments and such voices.
But the handle I have is, Kennedy, we have your handle either way.
When we hear that, then we know that we're being held accountable to the people, which is really right. And so we take it with a lot of grace, and we receive it with a lot of grace. When this happened, the Commission came out to call for action against the errant officers that were involved. We called out to our stakeholders, security, to play its role in investigating within themselves exactly what happened. We condemned the death, and we also had a press statement. And we also we have gone on to receive cases related to the violence and the violation that happened. So the Commission is really not seated. Our staff and us, we are all running up and down. But in view of the theme, My Right, My Power, I just wanted to emphasize that elections are an integral part of every democracy.
Indeed.
And they're very critical and important for Uganda as a country. And when we talk about Article 1 of the Constitution, which starts with all power belongs to the people, and later on it goes on, the same Constitution says, Uganda shall be governed based on the will of the people. I mean, those are very, very strong foundations for our country. Now, that means that you hold the key to the well-being of this country. If you want a new Uganda, if you want to secure your future, whatever it is, whatever slogan you have, you can only vote, you can only secure that or change Uganda through your vote. You're the change that you seek to have. If you want, you look at the different candidates, what do they have to offer? And use that, use the information that they're giving you to make a decision on who you want. You determine the country that you are in
By voting.
By voting.
Uh-huh.
And it's not through violence. Because if we destabilize the country, we are not going anywhere. We are staying here in our country. So if we want a peaceful Uganda, if we want a modernized Uganda, whatever it is, look at the candidates and say, this is the Uganda that I want to have. But you cannot do that through violence.
You have to
You
vote.
cannot do that through hurling stones at others. It is your power is your vote. And so that is why we, as a commission, we have been doing a lot of civic education.
Oh, yes.
And we have been saying, use your vote to make your decision on how you want the Uganda you want to see. But don't use violence. Because violence does not change anything. Violence will not build those roads or hospitals that you're seeking for. Use your vote to determine the kind of country you want to. Whoever you want to, that is why you have that leeway to cast your vote. And that is why it is very important for Ugandans to abide by the law, but also know when to do what and what to do. The event that happened on November 20 what?
Yeah.
Was so unfortunate. It was so unfortunate for our country, for us as the people. Those 50 lives meant were husbands, were wives, were children, were nieces and nephews of someone. Someone is hurting out there. It is unfortunate that some people were rioters. It should not have happened, but how do we go ahead of it? We have to, yes, and that is why we are having all these investigations that are happening, okay,
And
regarding
we hope
that
they come to
incident,
light after
to look into the deaths of these people. If indeed they were errant officers, we have said, let them be brought to book. Let us take action so that, because every life matters.
Yes.
And in our constitution, in our laws, we have made it a point to make sure that no life of any Ugandan should be lost because of politics. And politics will go and we shall stay. So let us be responsible, let us abide by the law, and let us use our vote to determine the Uganda we seek.
Well, Kennedy, I hope you've been answered well. The EC is burning. I can see Kenya, you just can't wait to answer. But with all that is going on, Mr. Bianga earlier on alluded to the freedom of expression that has been ganged by security operatives or agencies. Now, there is an undertone intimidation going on among the media owners. You've heard where he went and reached out to some radio owners in Hoima or Toro, and they said, no, yeah, where it happened, they stopped him, yet someone paid. Someone had a right, he paid, he had the receipts, but security came and, they just told him, get out of the studios, and they switched it off. We have a scenario where Muriat was on air for 30 minutes, but they had already switched it off. EC, what happens in that kind of situation where candidates are not given equal platforms in a campaign or in a season where you've taken center stage to run what we call scientific campaigns and elections?
Well, Andrew, we've guided as the Electoral Commission on use of media for political campaigning. We've given quite comprehensive guidelines, working with UCC, of course, because we realized that in this campaign, after discouraging mass gatherings, mass public rallies, the other option where a candidate can engage with audiences, with the electorate, is through media. So we provided for quite a mixture of approaches. We talked about using radio, television, those who can use that. UCC gave us permission for use of open-air broadcasting, the Chizindalo. We talked about publishing options where you can do posters, banners, leaflets, flyers. We talked about even one-on-one kakuyege, and of course new media, where you can use social media. And we guided on how this can be used within the laws of Uganda. But we know that from what we've heard, especially, and I will emphasize that from what we've heard, that there have been reports of denial of access to media houses. Now, for us to take it on legally and challenge and we've asked for formalities, for a kind of, can you please give us a right? Because we just see it in the papers. We cannot initiate on your behalf. We cannot initiate on your behalf that we hear on this day this happened. Please, can you help us to follow up this matter? Because we can. We can start that kind of engagement. But we've not, like I think my colleague also stated, we've not gotten anything coming into us other than what we've read about. But to tell you the truth, we've reached out to candidates because we've had meetings with candidates that you say on this day you were denied this. Please, can you help us to follow up this matter? And for that reason, can you provide with us a formal complaint? Can you give us proof that you paid for a show? Can you part of your communication? Because we want to follow it up. Because the matter that we are following out will end up as a legal matter. We will be asked to
prove.
To provide proof. Because we are going to take on someone. We're going to come on NTV and say, NTV, you've not complied. And they'll ask us that, where do you think we've not complied? And then we'll say, please refer to the documents attached. Candidate X called you on this day. This is the engagement, the conversation, visited the visitors book, you are there. So I think in order for us to help bridge this gap, we need that kind of thing. But besides that, all the same, minus the formalities and all that, we still reached out and say that media houses have a responsibility because they are partners. We even do some business with them. That if you do not allow a candidate to use this platform, then you are defeating the fight against the spread of COVID-19. You are defeating your own community because that radio station is based in the community. Yes. You are telling the people there that please don't use the radio, go and do mass public rallies, which we think is contradicting your mission and the objective. So as Electoral Commission, I think that is one area that has been challenging from the position of, providing the complaint, first of all, making a complaint form, because we have received other complaints in writing.
They're scared. Police, there is intimidation. I'll be very blunt with you.
And I don't know why. And I think if that continues, we will not be able to investigate the matters. It will be hard for us.
But it is on record, the former EC chairperson, may his rest in peace, Aziz Kasujja, at one time wrote a letter to the president and said that I need the military to pull out of the election when it was very, very tense and heated up, and said, if you could help me, that the security apparatus could just let the people practice this. Can EC take charge of this situation by just a letter when they write to the powers that be? This will be a gesture enough to show that EC is in charge. From where we stand, politicians and those running for offices will engage Senkubuga later. They feel that the security apparatus is more in charge of the elections than the EC. So where do we draw the balance there?
Security has a role in elections.
Of course it does.
Try to tell our stakeholders that please do not try to get security out of that. We have security provided for in our processes. Now, where there are excesses, operational issues of that nature, we've taken them on. So it's not that the Electoral Commission has not moved to engage security on that matter. Our the lead agency is the Uganda Police, and I think we've had several engagements with them formally, through meetings, and even writing on the matter of providing security. And the challenges that they've also made, because they will also confess, I'm not a spokesperson for Uganda Police, but policing these campaigns has been quite a challenge. It has also it has stretched them as well, because how do you ensure that there's compliance with these guidelines? And they've had their issues. They'll talk about them. You'll have them here.
I'll have them
But
here.
we've taken on police that as the lead agency, and the partner agencies that police works with, they are supposed to facilitate the conduct of campaigns, whatever it means. They're supposed to enable candidates to move, to conduct campaigns. They're supposed not to block, but to guide, to facilitate them. We've insisted on that, but and that's been our engagement. You are supposed to facilitate, ensure that, as a police commander, ensure that your district prepares and hosts a candidate. And that candidate must still fulfill the requirements, because there are requirements that are in place right now for conducting campaigns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a conversation we're still having. We're going to have a short break, but it's still about My Rights, My Power campaign. Be a part of this conversation on the digital platforms. Just give me the hashtag. I'll get your question and I will ask. And when we return, I'll be looking at the questions you've posed on the digital frameworks, and they will respond to them. It's still this televised dialogue about unwrapping the election day on 14th January 2021. How ready are you? How ready are the other stakeholders? We'll take a break and we'll be back shortly. Rights, My Power campaign. This is proudly brought to you by, of course, the Foundation for Human Rights and the Uganda Human Rights Commission. And not forgetting that, of course, we have the Electoral Commission and NTV. My name is Andrew Chamagero, and we're still looking at a couple of questions here. Well, I want to say that you have a right to give us your comment on whatever platform, but please, I request that we restrain ourselves from bullying people online. You have a right to your opinion, but you have no right whatsoever to trample the other person's opinion if they think that way. Now, the questions that are coming in here, and I'm going to start off with Council Waiswa. Of late, we have been told to re-register with the Media Council. We have to take back and resubmit our accreditation, whether we went to school or we didn't go to, because the law requires that me to be here on air, I should have a certificate from the Uganda Media Council that I went to school, I studied this. I'm not just a talented guy, but I studied this. The timing of this is a question in the media circles. We had the editorials, the Editors Guild, that came out and said this is totally trumped upon us because the times are not good. Is UCC sidelined with the government that journalists are being put in the corner not to speak out freely and fair? Our human rights, the freedom of expression, the freedom of information, the freedom of impacting society with the right information is being infringed on.
Thank you, Andrew, and the viewers for those questions. But the requirement from the Media Council is not a very new requirement. It is actually anchored within the Press and Journalist Act. And this law was written so many years ago in 1995. The only challenge has been lack of active enforcement of the provisions of that law, and specifically the issue of accreditation and journalists getting practicing certificates. It's actually a requirement within that law, and all journalists know that for you to be called a journalist, you must have some minimum qualifications.
That's true.
And this is precisely to ensure that, one, you know what you're doing, you are responsible, you adhere to the minimum standards of a journalist. But in Uganda at the moment, we enjoy a lot of freedom. So much that even when somebody tells you that you should follow these minimum rules, sometimes people look at it from the angle of you're gagging us, you're limiting us. But even in our small homes, we have rules. You set rules for your children. I agree that the timing may not be the best, but I think what the Media Council, and without speaking for the Media Council specifically, I know the reason why they did it now is because they are seeing some degree of infiltration of the industry by people who are not qualified, by people who are not aware of the dynamics, by people who don't even understand the fundamentals of good journalism. So I think the Media Council is only trying to weed out and ensure that whoever is going to report about elections is indeed a qualified person, he knows that he's a professional, is subject to the ethical code of conduct that is enshrined within the law. So I think what the Media Council is doing and what government is trying to do is not really entirely bad. I know there have been a number of engagements between the media fraternity, the Editors Guild, the Media Council of Uganda, and all of us are trying to support these processes in one way or another. But at the end of the day, I want to encourage all journalists that they should not look at whatever decision or action government and regulators are taking only from the negative. They should try as much as possible to look at the bigger picture. Is this, can you actually get a license from the Media Council, and what requirements have they imposed on you? If you can't get it, Chamagalo, go to the Media Council, get it. It's not like they are saying we won't accredit you or we won't give you a license. I know some people have been advising the journalists that this is illegal, it's unlawful, but I want to speak without fear of contradiction that actually under the Press and Journalist Act, every journalist in Uganda is supposed to have at all times a practicing certificate. And for a foreign journalist, they must have an accreditation issued by the Media Council. It's true that in some cases these requirements have not been strictly enforced, but merely because there's been laxed on the part of the council doesn't render their action at this moment wrong. And so rather than resenting it and politicizing it, let us look at the bigger picture. I'm sure the Media Council is very much pro-people, and is doing this all for purposes of improving professionalism and responsibility.
Okay, there is a question. This one comes in from Charles Odidi. He says that paving way from 7, the chosen leader. Big ups to you, so that's what you're doing. There is a question here that says, Earlier on, Mr. Weiss was saying that they wrote to Google so that Google can put restraint on errant accounts, right? Is Mr. Weiss aware of what Lumbuye has been doing in the recent past?
I've had the benefit of looking at some of the posts that Mr. Lumbuye posts on his...
You've seen his broadcasts?
I've seen some of his broadcasts. And
what is UCC doing about it?
And his account is one of those. And I want to tell those of you who follow Mr. Lumbuye, who are in touch with him, I think you need to advise him. Uganda has the freedom of expression, but in doing so, try as much as possible to respect the rights of others. And what Mr. Lumbuye and others do is actually broadcasting. Lumbuye is like a small radio station, a radio station that is watched and listened to by people across the world. So what I would advise him to do is you reach out to UCC, apply and get this online broadcaster's license. In that license, we shall give you certain terms and conditions, which will subject to some professional standards, just like we do for NTV, for all other broadcasters. We are not saying that...
All that he has said in the recent past, you'll give him a license?
Of course, under the law, if you use the media platform, either TV, radio, or online to commit a crime, you can be investigated, and if indeed evidence is gotten that you committed the offense, you can actually be prosecuted. So what Mr. Lumbuye has done, I don't want to prejudge him, but from some of the posts I've seen, some of them are sectarian, some of them are insightful, some of them are tribalistic, and all these offend so many laws in the Penal Code and in the Uganda Communications Act and the Computer Misuse Act. So I call upon all other people, without speaking about Mr. Lumbuye, who is not here, to our colleagues who are watching, please do not try to be encouraged by people like those. Also open up these accounts and begin abusing people, begin maligning personalities. People work so hard for their names. And this country, all of us have a stake in it, in whatever small way. So let us mutually respect each other. Like our friend Ruth from Human Rights Commission noted, some people think that their rights are superior to other people's rights. But in terms of legal status, we are all equal before the law. So you do not have any extra permission to attack me, to abuse me, or to breach my human rights in the Constitution merely because for you think that you have a platform on YouTube, on radio or TV. So what we preach and what we call upon all broadcasters and even Ugandans who are using social media, let us be professional. Let us respect each other's rights, especially during this electoral period. Many countries have suffered because of misuse of the media. So we shouldn't become a statistic in that regard. Let us be as professional, as respectful, and I mean Uganda is a society where we encourage open engagement. We have freedom of expression. We speak freely, and the government is keen on supporting you to engage. But in doing so, can we be mutually respectful to each other?
Right there. Mr. Bayanga Joseph, I want to engage on this. He alludes to freedom of expression. You as someone who comes from the National Association of Broadcasters, do you feel as media you have the freedom of expression to enhance whatever rights you have, to flourish and dissect and bisect issues that matter in this election, that on the election day the populace is ready mentally and they're ready with their rights and duties? Mr. Bayanga? Okay, well, I think he's currently off.
Actually, I think on that issue, I would, I don't know, as Mr. Bayanga gets in,
he's going to get back
as
to
he
us
gets
because
back.
he comes from NAB, and this is where there is a feel of freedom has been ganged upon as media towards this election day. We feel there is a little bit of, they call it invisible hand. You're going to do this, but you feel there is something saying, you should not run that. You should not host that one.
Actually, what we did before the election period started was to engage the media practitioners, media owners, journalists. We shared with them the draft guidelines on use of media during a digital campaign. We got their views, we got their input into that document. The intention was for us to ensure that everybody knows what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. And in those guidelines, we did not create anything new. We are only summarizing the legal provisions in the so many laws surrounding elections. And the intention was how do we prepare ourselves? We know that Andrew Chamagero could be well positioned and exposed to know the do's and don'ts of a journalist. But we know there are so many colleagues in the field there. We have so many media owners who do not have a lot of experience in managing electoral processes. So what we did as UCC was to massively engage the media. We've had so many engagements to tell them about the basics of good journalism during elections, because you know what makes election period unique is that emotions and tempers are high.
Very right.
And because of that, people are trying to look for ways to annoy each other. Some of them use it as a trick to show themselves as better, but also the voters have a critical decision to make. So as the media, especially during a digital election, we have a very critical role of ensuring that we calm down the nation. We continuously and constantly remind our voters that to disregard all the noises, disregard all the attacks, disregard all the smear campaign, and look at the issues. Can the media be that media that will help the voters to be well informed, to articulate these people's manifestos, but also be able to make informed decisions? Because at the end of the day, on 14th January, we are going to vote for the chief executive of this country.
Do or die.
If we want Uganda, the Uganda that we shall all be proud of as a generation, this is our time to go and vote, but vote issues, vote people that we think are going to transform Uganda from where it is to where we want it to be. And that can best be done by the media, and this should be done in a way that respects others, because we have a duty to preserve this country.
And the media should not be gunned by state operatives.
And indeed, I think by being reminded to be professional, I don't want the media practitioners to look at it like we are gagging them. Across the world, the media plays a critical role. And because of that critical role, government has a duty to ensure that the media does not use its vintage position to sway people off the right course and drive them into doldrums. So in telling people to get back to the right channel, we are not gagging, but we are only trying to remind them.
Thank you so much. You've really talked like a regulator at all lengths, but it's a good conversation. Major, coming back to you, like he has alluded to the fact that these are intense moments. It's heated up. Emotions are flaring in one or the other. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to know the free and fairness on the ground. The joint operation, security operations that are going to run on that day, have they engaged the local leaders from the village levels?
Well, first of all, bottom line, elections is not a matter of do or die. First of all, in the history of this country, the people who give us the template on how to conduct free, fair, credible elections, when they were here, when they were ruling Uganda, they never held an election.
Oh, yes.
For 60 years, they were here. They gave us some sham election and ran away.
It was hands off management.
After that, Obote won, there was no election. 9 years.
Yes.
Idi Amin, no election. Yusuf Lule, no election. It was too short. Binaisa, no election. Paul Mwanga organized a contested election, which brought civil war in Uganda. Now, Uganda is a young democracy, and we are growing. With every election, we learn lessons. So that is number one. Then secondly, while election is a very, very important component of democracy, it's not the only component of democracy. There is a balance of power between institutions. There is the challenges of raising civic competence. Civic competence means people know their constitutional obligations, what Ruth was talking about. And also there is also decommercializing elections or empowering people economically so that they can make decisions devoid of bribery and other malpractice.
Major, because of time, I really want to know, is UPDF grounded with local leaders as we head to the election day?
UPDF is, and other sister, and the dialogue, to be honest with you, should continue at sub-county level, at district level, and national level. People tend to look at the national level only. And that's why you were talking about errant RDCs who are...
Yes.
He says, today you are not coming in my district.
We have seen that there are even presidential advisors who are commanding commandants to stop operations, and they're wielding a lot of power. So all these are checks and balances from, you know, the public eye as citizenry. We look at it and you're like, are we safe on the voting day?
And frankly, you will be, because if the UPDF can guarantee security in Mogadishu, why not here in Kampala?
There was mace in Natharis, but in Capernaum it was it was a little bit relaxed.
UPDF has supervised the elections in Mogadishu, and there's been a free and fair election in Mogadishu. So for here, definitely there will be peace.
There will be peace. Thank you, Major. Coming to you, Ruth, because of time, we don't have most international observers in these elections. Most of them say they're not turning up because the EC wrote, and the letter was to whom it may concern, as per their comment that was out in the media. Should we expect a free and fair elections in the event where we have few observers, even where the NGOs and CSOs that always do the civic awareness and the duties have been, in one way or the other, curtailed by the government operations of freezing their accounts that could possibly give them logistics? From the human rights perspective, where do you see this going?
Okay. It is not the observers that determine a free and fair election. Free, fair, and a credible election.
Yes.
No, it's not the observers. The role of observers is to assess and see the situation, and then thereafter they write a report and go home. Okay? It is our role as Ugandans and the government institutions and the state to ensure that there's a free, fair, and credible election. And this is why we have been calling for rights, observing everyone's rights, but also observing responsibilities, and government ministries, agents, departments, and everyone who works for the state to also act responsibly, to avoid excesses. That is where the shooting and all these errant officers come in, to observe the human rights standards, because there are human rights standards in elections, human rights standards in policing, human rights standards in security, human rights standard in use of firearms. In every aspect, there are standards that are international that we follow, the whole world follows. So we have been calling on key agencies, including the RDCs that my colleague has talked about, to observe and also not exceed their authority. That way we'll have free, fair, and credible election. So it's incumbent upon every player to do their role responsibly, but not exceeding what they should do, and within the law. So if we follow the law as is, okay? If we abide by the human rights standards, using human rights-based approaches in everything we do, and we, the voters, abide by our rules and our responsibilities and observe and receive our rights, then we'll have, there's no reason for us to even fear. But the challenge then comes in because everyone is charged up. Some others want to feel like they want to be seen to do certain things. There are excesses because of emotions. There is anger, and there are, you know, it's a do or die situation, and that is where the challenge comes in. And that is where people get charged up on both sides, which we do not need. So let us observe the law. Let us also respect the law, and also different government agencies respect the rights of Ugandans, but also act responsibly in whatever role that you are doing.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Now, Mr. Senkbuge, if you're still with us, do you then expect free and fair elections, credible elections, in the absence of international observers? Because your party has been at the forefront of saying that the reason why they're not being allowed to come and observe, it's because this is a unique kind of elections. Where do you stand on this? Mr. Senkbuge?
Well, I think the ideal situation would be to have the observers here, partly because they do boost the credibility.
Mr. Senkbuge, I'll have to let you go. The network is a little bit get you there. We can't get that. Let me
But
come
let
back
me say,
to you.
let me say something on the observers that Even though we would want to have the observers,
Yes.
we realize that also many could not also come because of COVID-19, the way they usually fly in. And, but even if we do not have the observers, we have local observers. Uganda Human Rights Commission, civil society, they are in position and they have it, the Women's Situation Room. They have previously done a great job
And
to
these,
observe, and they have written very good reports. They have pointed out violations. They have pointed out excesses. They have pointed out flaws, including the Uganda Human Rights Commission. We have written very credible and interesting reports that we have produced before Parliament. And it is these that have been used to effect changes in policy, amendment in policy, and laws where we see that things have not gone well in particular places. We as Ugandans, if we do not have the foreigners at international level and at a regional level, we can still do a credible job, we can still do a good job, and we have done it before. I think it can still be done.
it can still
But
be
if
done.
they came, it would be wonderful.
Just to bring you to speed on that, the NGOs that made reports in the previous elections, and these are reports that were very brilliant. They were great. This time around, they said, you know what, let's all just be together. They created a group called The New You. This one was immediately at the media center. The spokesperson of the NGO forum said, they are not registered with us, we're not going to allow them run. And they've done this in the wave that the international observers weren't coming. So they said, we're not going to fight this in silos. Let's just put up one collective approach to this. But it was ganged again by the state. And those are the observers we're talking about. Coming to you, Mr. Mr. Kenya here.
Yeah.
What happens in the event that we don't have international observers?
First of all, we invited observers. We launched the roadmap on the 18th of December, 11th of December 2018, and informed the whole world about how we're going to progress in the organization of the elections, the roadmap.
Was your letter to whom it may concern?
The following year, 2019, we wrote a letter inviting observers, national and international, to observe activities, because if you remember, bulk of activities were done in 2019. In July, we wrote a letter, and for purposes of foreign organizations, bodies, and governments, we go through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Our letter inviting international agencies, and for that matter, even the European Union, is on record. We do not specifically invite a government that we've written to that, but we inform our embassies, we write to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and write to all stakeholders, including the EU, and they received that letter. So in December 2019, we did the same. So I think for the record, the Electoral Commission did its part. The matter of EU is at a higher level, of course.
Very much so.
But it has been discussed. We do not have any issue with the election observers. We certainly have invited and started accreditation even right now. 26, I think 28 national and international observers have been accredited to date.
Okay.
So there's going to be observation of this election, because it's good for us as well. Someone keeps an eye and tells us, on this one you did well, you had gaps here, you need to attend and strengthen these areas. So it's very important that elections are observed, and there are already regional bodies and even international bodies and foreign missions based here. And without sounding controversial, what even the EU has written to us about, looking at the elections, it is something that is being handled. So I think that matter needs to be let out. We don't need to go back to the past, but we'll have observers.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that we do as Electoral Commission.
They're very key.
Observers.
And now going to the question, what happens if a polling station turns chaotic in this regard of 2021? Will the polling exercise be repeated? Who should raise these complaints?
I think that the first thing we need to do is to ensure that our polling station does not turn chaotic. We need to keep the peace there.
The emotions are flaring, Mr.
Let's keep them, but we need to have the elections. I think we can't get a candidate through chaos. Chaos will not give us a candidate, a result.
Hypothetically, so if a polling station turns chaotic,
if a polling station turns chaotic, then you risk having that that polling station not being counted into the final tally. Because if, for example, you burn up the materials, you turn chaotic, and the election is not able, we are not able to proceed, and we are not able to organize again. You remember we organized elections on the 14th of January. We have 48 hours within which to declare the results of elections. If for some reason one polling station delays, it does not return its returns in time due to chaos, for example, then
yes.
you risk your voices not being heard. So let's just not even imagine that. Make sure your polling station does not turn chaotic. We have 34,000 polling stations. Make sure your polling, it's a personal decision. High and hot as it may be, exciting as it is, make sure you rein in and say that my polling station is not going to become chaotic. We are going to agree. There are guidelines, there are procedures to follow. Why don't we reach an understanding and have a smooth election? I think let's push for that. So that our polling station, Serena, is counted among the 34,000.
I love that. Now, that brings me to, what are the complaints mechanism on the polling day? How fast are these mechanisms expected to resolve the disputes that come from that kind of polling day?
Well, on polling days, complaints do come up. And one of the mechanisms put in place is a complaints desk in each district. We do have a complaints desk, and of course at the national center, we have a national complaints desk. Now here is a desk where inquiries can come in. I do not see my names on the register. We do not, any issue that needs resolving, the commission remains at the center and addresses those issues before and during the elections. So we have a structure at national level, we have officers at regional level, and we have a structure at the district level. But for each sub-county, we have a supervisor who coordinates. If there's a matter at a polling station, we do not see this. Much as we do a checklist and confirm everything has gone, if for some reason you find one item or anything, any matter that needs attention, there's a parish supervisor, there's a sub-county supervisor, and the support teams that go out, technical teams, because this election has some technology component.
Oh, yes.
That's why we've been recruiting, if you've looked through the papers, technology assistants for every district to help run the systems, the biometric voter verification systems and voter register related issues can be resolved. We've given the copy of the register to candidates. Rather, we are going to give them a hard copy. Early in January, we've already given them a soft copy. That also helps us to resolve register related complaints. So we have a structure which we can use. We also have toll-free numbers. These are going to be announced in the shortest time because they will help us to call in toll-free and we get to resolve issues that relate to polling day. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Robert Ngala, I think Director Ruth already responded to your query. Then Bitmithi Shabra, I still say that she again responded to that earlier on about the EC. Oh God, Director Ruth, you're right at the center, but Zawede Brenda says thank you so much by saying that you hold the key to the well-being of this country, and it's our job as Ugandans to vote and to go out and vote. Thank you so much. This conversation, it's actually very remarkable. And someone here says that this question goes to you, Afande. Peaceful. Okay, no. I'll just let this pass. I'll just let this pass. As we're finalizing this conversation, I want us to have our parting shots because the questions here, please, I would really want to say, let's restrain from, reactionary kind of questions. Let's find solutions on the election day. What are your parting shots, directors? We're winding up this conversation. What should Ugandans look out for, and what should be our call to action as citizens as we head to these elections in 2021?
I said, very important to democracy. And as Ugandans, it's very important that we all vote because we determine who our leaders are. Go and decide who you want to be your leader and how you want to be led. So that is why we call upon all Ugandans who are registered to go and vote. We, however, call upon all Ugandans to act responsibly to ensure that there is peace in our country. Let us use the vote and use that ballot box, but then not use violence, because when we destabilize this country, we also lose lives. And I also call upon security agencies, my colleague here, UPDF, police, EC, UCC, to not only act within the law, but also seen to be fair. So whatever you do, ensure that you are not only fair in your way, in your eyes, but also act to be seen to be fair. that is when we shall have credible election. Let us make sure that we are not seen to be suspicious in the way we operate. Let us ensure that we are not partisan and we are not biased and we don't apply the law selectively. So let us try to abide by the law and also use human rights, because human rights are about fairness. We're about non-discrimination. We are speaking peace. We are speaking love. And we want this country to be an embedment of that. So when we talk about human rights, we are talking about everything: security, peace, love, tolerance, non-discrimination for each other, because that is the gist of this. Elections are important, but and also human rights are important, but they go hand in hand with responsibilities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Major. Everyone, as you're finalizing, what are your parting shots to Ugandans?
Just two things. The first one is dialogue.
Okay. To who?
The atmosphere is so toxic. All the stakeholders involved.
Okay.
Political parties have to talk to each other and talk to the state. Civil society has to have their own internal dialogues and also relate to the state. The state should, and all these should talk to citizens in meaningful and rich conversations on what future do we want for our children. Because this toxicity in the electoral process is being seen by our children. And you can see what it will do to them when their time comes to lead. So dialogue is very important. Building bridges between the state, civil society, the state and political parties is key. Secondly, I've been told by the command of UPDF to tell you that our discussions would be incomplete if we don't talk about COVID. That's why this whole election is peculiar. It's a strange election. Its virtue is scientific because we have a worldwide pandemic upon us. And people should know, and especially leaders. If a leader says don't use masks, congregate in a situation like this, do you expect me to go and vote and then I die the next day? What would be the use of my vote if I vote today and I die tomorrow? So all leaders, if they really want to lead, and if they want us to have a peaceful and progressive nation, we should take the issue of SOPs very seriously, because COVID kills, and we should go to the elections. In fact, before even we talk about the physical deployment of forces, let's have in our own psyche the knowledge that voting is important, but our health is more important.
Thank you, Major. Before we leave, there is a request that has come through. Usually we have callers who call in, but the vibe online, the regulator is here, the energy online was not allowing me to. Let me just open up the lines. You can see the number on your screen. Please call that number and you ask any question you have. Just two callers. I need two callers because of time. The number you see on the screen, it's the number you should possibly call. And you ask questions either to UCC, either to EC, or Major, or the Human Rights Commission here with us. The number will be on your screen. Just call that number and ask this question as and when it actually comes through. When we get the call, we'll actually take it. But for now, EC, what could be your parting shots?
Well, I would like to update the nation and say that the countdown is on. We have candidates and they are campaigning. And like we said, we are also addressing issues that are emerging during the campaigns. So that shows the election is on. We have started on recruiting of staff to conduct the exercise at polling station, which shows also our movement in the direction of readiness. We have started bringing in the ballot papers. That's a reminder that the elections are on. The dates are here with us. So if someone thought that this is still a long way, it is here. We have set the polling dates for the various elective positions, presidential, parliamentary, then after that we have district elections, district level elections, for those who have seated divisions and municipalities. Then the last elections will be on the 3rd of February with but in between we have special interest groups, youth, MPs, older persons, workers, persons with disabilities, and the UPDF. We have accredited observers, and we're still accrediting, working on a media issue, because media will be covering the elections. We are working on their issues. We're just saying that please prepare to participate in the elections.
We have a call
numbers,
in. We have a call in,
and in
Mr.
a safe
Okenya.
manner.
Just a minute. We have a call in. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. What's your name and where are you calling from? Come again. Okay. What's your question? Okay, I think I've lost you, but please, the number is on the screen. You will call in and ask your question before go. Now, one more caller to go. Mr. Okenya, you can carry on.
Yeah, we're just saying that please prepare to participate in high numbers, exercise your right, but also prepare to participate in a safe manner. Prepare in advance your mask, because we require you to come to a polling station with your mask. It is a very responsible action.
So no mask, no voting.
It's a very reasonable request on our part. You're protecting yourself, but you're also protecting others. So prepare to participate in a manner that is safe and considerate, because we, like my colleague said here, we have a common enemy, COVID-19. It doesn't know a party, it doesn't know any colors.
Okay. We have another call online. Good afternoon. Hello? Hello? Please stay away from your TV if you've called us. Hello? Okay, let's pick another caller. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, hello, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. What's your name?
I'm Richard from Dinka.
Okay, what's your question?
Yeah, what I want to ask those colleagues you brought in the studio, especially that one, the Department of the Security. They are unfair when you look on the behavior they always do when candidates on the opposing side do in a campaign.
Okay, thank you so much. I think he's talking about selective handling of or selective implementation of some measures when it gets to security operatives. The way they treat the NRM is quite unique from the way they treat the opposition. What is security doing about that to have level grounds, Major?
I think this question has been discussed in very many fora. What I can say is that all sides should be careful about what they do. Because now the central theme in this election is how do you conduct an election amidst a pandemic? Who is having a more organized and health sensitive campaign and who is not? You see, when you introduce the element of saying, I'm going to defy SOPs, now it becomes very difficult for the security officer who has been briefed to say, you should not have 1,000 people, you should have maximum 230 people.
Oh, yes.
So really, it's a challenge for security officers. Sometimes I empathize with them because this is a critical thing. We are not children, we are adults. The pandemic is killing people. The other time, yesterday we buried a very senior government official, Deputy Prime Minister. So it's important that people understand that this pandemic is there, that life is primary and elections are secondary.
Thank you. Council, as we're finalizing, what are your parting shots?
Thank you, Andrew. For me, my parting shot should be that as Ugandans, we should all love this country. And for those colleagues of ours who are playing a role within the media industry, be it journalists, media owners, let us try to use our right to broadcast responsibly by ensuring that we create a platform that fairly guarantees Ugandans the best out of this process. We shouldn't be partisan. In Uganda, all broadcasters are supposed to be non-partisan. Even if you have political inclinations as an individual, please remember that as a radio presenter, as a TV presenter, as a media house, you have a duty to the nation, and it's a license and legal obligation for you to be impartial. So do not use your political position and make it appear to be the official position of everybody, and then you show it on air and you begin imposing your position on others. And then also we call upon all the media houses to be fair by according all political contenders a fair chance to appear on their programs. As UCC and as government, I'm sure we encourage all candidates to be treated fairly. There is no restriction that merely because somebody is from the opposition, they don't have the right to appear on TV or radio, and we want to call upon all the media owners, media practitioners to be steadfast in ensuring that they stand up for everybody. Do not deny people access to your radios, and then when it comes to charging costs for people who are paying for political adverts, we've guided in the guidelines that you should treat people fairly, do not overcharge them. Do not use this period to extort money from politicians. Try to be fair, because this is one of your contributions to your community. I mean, you've made a lot of money during the other periods. This is a time when all TVs, all radios should not look at money, should rather look at serving the people. Because media is not just about business. Media is also about serving the nation and adding value to the community and to this country that we all aspire to see better.
Thank you so much, Council. That brings us to the end of our conversation. I don't understand, is Mr. Bianga still with us online? Do you still have Mr. Bianga Joseph? He's already gone. Okay, those who have been online, who have been following this conversation, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. It has been from the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative in partnership with the Electoral Commission and the Uganda Human Rights Commission and NTV. I still want to say, as a countryman going for elections, you and I have a job, and our job is to vote, especially those who are, you know, the elites who are in offices. It happens, according to the research, that you don't vote. Now, like Ruth said earlier on, it's our job to go out and have a voice heard. Please be as peaceful as you can be on the election day. We can't leave Uganda and go to any other country. It stays our country. You and I have a mandate to protect whatever interests we have. So your vote counts on that day. Don't just talk online. Go and vote. And please, much as you love a particular party or a particular candidate, there is life after elections. Protect your life. Wear a mask. Sanitize. Social distance. I know it's close to impossible, but try your best. I don't want to broadcast to ghosts later. I'm Andrew Chamagiro. Have a lovely afternoon.